Good morning, guys. Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today is February 4th. That means we are 9 days away from the Arizona elk and antelope application deadline. Make sure that you get your applications in online and on time. I don't recommend waiting till the last day. Probably over the next week. Make sure you get it done. This is going to be a great episode with Jeff Lester of HuntHard Outfitters. We're going to be talking specifically about Unit 1 and Unit 27. And Jeff brings a great perspective for those units, being an outfitter born and raised up there in that area. And if you guys have any questions in regards to the draw, for Arizona, feel free to send me an email at jscottoutdoors@gmail.com. Also on Instagram at jscottoutdoors, you can send me a direct message. I want to thank the sponsors of this podcast. I want to thank the title sponsor, GoHunt.com Insider, and remind you guys that you can use the JScott promo code when signing up for the GoHunt Insider. Use the J Scott promo code, and that is going to get you a $50 Go Hunt Gear Shop gift card. And Go Hunt Insider has recently released the most accurate draw odds for all the western states. And we've been going over Arizona specifically. And if you use the J Scott promo code, you're going to get that $50 discount, but you're also going to have full access to the Insider. And it is the best Western hunting resource out there. And you can research all the different units. You can go through all the specific and very accurate draw odds, the harvest statistics, and break down each unit and figure out which one's best for you. I want to thank GoHunt.com for their sponsorship. All you got to do is go to GoHunt.com, go to the Insider, click join now, and use the J Scott promo code. I want to thank you guys for that. Also, KUIU Ultralight Hunting just finished up the Safari Club International show this coming week. All of my sponsors, including KUIU, are going to be at the Western Hunting Expo in Salt Lake City. I will be there as well on Friday and Saturday walking around. Love to meet you guys. If you see me, say hi, and let's hook up. So I want to thank KUIU Ultralight Hunting. Jason Hairston and his crew create the best ultralight hunting gear on the market today. Dar and I use it on all of our hunts. If you have any questions about the gear, let me know. I'm happy to meet you over at the KUIU booth and go over some things that I like. And I want to thank KUIU for their sponsorship of this podcast. Also, PhoneScope, use the JScott16 promo code. You're going to get a 10% discount on all PhoneScope products. So whether it be the website, phonescope.com, or if you're at these shows, if you use the JScott promo code, you're going to get a 10% discount on all of these PhoneScope products. As you know, all of the videos on my Instagram page are taken with the PhoneScope adapter, and PhoneScope is able to take any spotting scope or binocular and adapt it to any phone, and you'll be taking photos and videos immediately. And last but not least, sponsoring this podcast is the Outdoorsman's, the Optics Authority. They're located in Arizona. If you have any optics needs, they make unbelievable tripods, backpacks, and other gear. If you use the J Scott promo code with the Outdoorsman's, either on outdoorsmans.com or by calling 1-800-291-8065, you're going to get a 10% discount just by using my name, J Scott. Go by and see the sponsors at the show. Tell them you listen to the podcast. That helps me out, and that lets them know that you guys are hearing the message loud and clear. Let's get right to this episode with Jeff Lester of HuntHard Outfitters. I want to thank him for coming on and sharing his expertise. And guys, don't forget, February 13th, the deadline for Arizona. Welcome to the J. Scott Outdoors podcast. Today we have a friend of friend of mine, a friend of the podcast, Jeff Lester of HuntHard Outfitters. Jeff resides over in the eastern part of Arizona, born and raised over there in the Eager Springerville area. Jeff, how you doing?
Great, Jay. How are you doing?
Good. Just got back from Mexico, Coos deer hunting. I saw that you were down there doing a little hunting yourself.
Yeah, went down there with a group of friends, and we hunted some ranches and had a really good hunt. All killed bucks. I think we went 100%. So it was a really good hunt. It was good to get away and get to shoot something for myself every once in a while.
It is, isn't it? Now, were you guys hunting mountain ranches or desert ranches? Were you hunting coos or muleys? What were you hunting?
We were hunting coos deer, and we weren't in Sonora. We were in Chihuahua.
Okay.
And, yeah, really good hunting. I don't know, I guess I passed a really, really good solid buck up. The first buck I glassed out of the bag was a really solid buck, but I think sometimes we get a little greedy. And
yeah.
I shouldn't have probably passed that buck up, but I thought I could do better, and I ended up killing I killed 2 deer. One of my deer was about 110 was my biggest deer, and it was a nice buck, but the other buck was a little bigger. In coos deer, just a few inches means a lot. It's kind of like antelope.
Yeah, for sure. One of the things I've never hunted coos deer in Chihuahua. I've hunted turkey there, but never hunted coos. I believe you've hunted both Chihuahua and Sonora.
Yeah.
Wondering if you could compare or contrast, Chihuahua to Sonora, maybe from a density standpoint, from a trophy quality standpoint, from a travel standpoint. I mean, what are your overall thoughts?
I would say, in Sonora, I guess you'd be in a little more desert terrain than you would be in Chihuahua where we hunted. I'm not going to say one's any better than the other. I mean, deer densities was much, was close to the same in each place. I found that where we hunted in Chihuahua, going in and out seemed a little easier, just going through the border and stuff. And not that it was difficult either place, but I mean, it seemed a little quicker. It wasn't as busy in the crossing that we went in, and so we were able to get taken care of a little quicker. On trophy potential and quality, I would say it'd be like Southern Arizona. It'd be like one unit over the other. As long as the ranch has been managed correctly and, a certain amount of deer hadn't been taken off of it, it was good, So
yeah, I mean, it all comes down to how many deer have been shot. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're talking, unit to unit, or if you're talking, in Mexico and you're talking ranch to ranch. I mean, wouldn't you agree? Obviously, there's better ranches than others. There's higher density, lower density, but then when it comes down to trophy quality, a lot of it has to do with how much hunting pressure has it gotten, how many bucks have been taken year after year, and, what is left. Would you agree?
Oh, I would totally agree with that. The group of guys that I go with, so we were hunting basically 4 ranches, and the amount and size and age class of the deer killed last year compared to this year was a big difference. Nobody shot as big a deer that was shot last year.
Yeah. And
I had taken away, and I hadn't gone in a couple of years because I was doing a couple of different shows that were when I needed to be down there hunting, and I'm not doing those shows anymore, so I was able to get my spot back and go. So I would definitely say that, it's all about, how many bucks have been taken off each ranch and how that has been managed. The ranch that we hunted had a lot of country that was not accessible only by foot. And I ended up hiking way back in a couple of places and really got into a lot of deer. But, I don't know. I mean, it's, I'm looking for that, 115 plus deer is what I was kind of looking for. I killed a 134 down there 4 years ago. And I guess that kind of spoiled me on Mexico. I'm looking for that really upper age class deer, and
Well, not only that, wouldn't you agree, Jeff? Not only are you looking for that upper age class, but I mean, you're looking for something that has it all. You're looking for the Shaquille O'Neal of, you're looking for the anomaly. And wouldn't you agree that when you've shot some big bucks, it's kind of like you have to check yourself a little bit and be like, this isn't just talking like a mature deer. This is talking about not only maturity, but you're talking about, the supermodel of Coues deer. Like, you're looking for the one and only type of buck.
Yeah, it's definitely, a high standard, but the thing about it is we know those deer exist. Last year, in some of the places we hunted, I think out of like half the guys that went, I mean, I think they shot like 6 deer over 120.
Yeah.
And now, of course, that was on, 4 different ranches out of like 15 guys,
Right.
Now, this year, nobody killed that monster of a buck. One guy, I think, killed like a 114. I passed a buck that I now that I've really looked at him, I think he's upwards of pushing 115. And I passed that buck just because he had a big frame on him. He had short points, but his frame was really, really, good. And he had a double eye guard and some kickers and just had some extras. The Coues deer world, every deer has a different look. One of the deer I shot was only a 100-inch buck while I was down there, but he just had that look, and I looked at him forever. And I just decided to shoot him because he was just a really cool-looking deer. And, I thought this is all he's ever going to be. And actually, after I shot him, he was actually a young deer. And I really thought he was an older buck, but it's kind of a mistake on my part. And I looked at him too long. You know how it is when you're hunting. If you decide you don't want something, you need to walk away right there. Because if you sit and look at something long enough, you're going to talk yourself into it. A lot of times
and I
that
think
happens.
you bring up a good point that and I think that's one reason why I like Coues deer so much is like they have every buck, no matter the size. Like, I mean, once you get to let's say 100 inches, once you get to that 100-inch level, like every 100-inch plus buck has its own unique characteristic. I mean, you've got your normal 3x3s that are cookie cutter, 105, they all look the same. But when you get to that 100-inch mark, you start getting, little kickers, you start getting, droppers, you start getting forks, you start getting, wide, narrow, high, long points, short points, big eye guard, small eye, like you're getting a little bit different. I mean, it's almost like there's no two bucks that are the same, and I think that's one thing that I really like, where, mule deer, when you start talking about typical mule deer, I mean, pretty much the boxy 4x4 frame, pretty similar. That just doesn't seem to have that unique difference in characteristics from rack to rack, and pretty cool.
Right.
Well, I'm glad you had a good hunt down there. How was your rut? We had pretty warm conditions. I mean, I don't know that we ever had frost on our quad seats one morning, and obviously.
We had really warm conditions, really solid rut. Saw a lot of rut action from the first day we were there. I mean, it was
consistent, wasn't it? It was like just
very consistent. I mean, I'd glass a doe up, and I told the guys, I said, you see a doe, there's a buck there. Just keep watching.
Yeah.
And sure enough, every doe would have a buck tinned in it, So if I saw 10 bucks in a day, I saw 10 does. That's kind of how it was. We didn't see a lot of does on the ranches we were hunting. But if we saw 10 bucks, we saw 10 does or 2 does and a buck, and you know how cagey those deer are. They just really, they tin that doe and don't leave her, and it just, the one buck that I shot, the 110 buck, I had actually passed him up cruising. He was cruising looking for does, and he was a long ways off, and I put a phone scope on him, and I had videoed him. And then I went back and looked at my video and thought, man, I made a mistake there. I should have probably shot that buck. But he was on the move, and I just never could get him to stop to really study him. Well, after I got the phone scope on him, I looked at the video that night and thought, man, that deer's pushing 110. And I found him 2 days later in 2 canyons over. Of course, he was with one doe, just tending her, and So the rut was really consistent. When we left the week after we were there, the rut was really, they said it even picked up more. But I saw great rut activity, and I think we went down on we got in there and started hunting on the 6th.
Okay.
And so we saw solid rut action, solid rut action. So.
What were the drought conditions like, or range conditions? Were water tanks a lot of dry water tanks, or were you in a region that was okay?
It was dry. I'm not going to say it wasn't, and they said they hadn't received any rain other than they had a snowstorm about 2 or 3 weeks before we got there. They said it got really cold and they got some snow on the ranches. But other than that, the dirt tanks all had water in them, but they were close to being dry. And then, I don't even know what they call them down there. It's not like a trick tank, but they build dams and these deals in these canyons, and then those had water in them. And then they pump the water to drinkers,
I love how those old ranchers, they build those concrete dams in all the bottoms of those draws. I mean, if and the ranchers here used to do it too. If they tried to do it today, I mean, there'd be an uproar of, you can't do that. You can't dam up the water. But I love those old, you just go down there in the bottoms of those canyons and, they stagger them every, mile or so. You'll see a concrete dam, and it's like, that's so cool. And,
yeah, it's pretty neat how they build them.
Oh, it's really neat.
And then they build the pumps on them, and they put the pumps so they can pump the water to the drinkers on top and then gravity feed the drinkers. It's actually a very smart way to conserve water, where they're not losing water to, where it's not soaking in the ground. They're putting them in real rocky areas and canyons and stuff, and it makes the tank hold a lot more water, of course. So,
for sure. Let's dive into what we want to talk about on the podcast. It's good talking about Mexico, but let's get into the meat of what we're going to talk about, and that's we're staring Arizona elk and antelope applications here in the face, due February 13th for Arizona. You obviously guide in Arizona and in New Mexico, but specifically talking about Unit 1 and Unit 27 are kind of your bread and butter, and feel free to go into any other units. I've had other podcast guests on. We've covered a bunch of units in Arizona. I've had guests on covering 1 and 27, guys that and friends, competitors, etc. in the business, but getting everybody's opinion on these units and looking forward, guys that have, points in their pocket, moving forward, looking at, how is this next year going to be? Before we dive into the nitty-gritty of 1 and 27, overall, sitting here, the 2nd of February, trying to predict the future is obviously hard, but a couple questions. How do the range conditions look? How dry is it? Where does it stack up in your mind as someone that's grown up there? What are we looking at?
Well, first off, I don't think I've ever, and so I'm 43 years old, and as long as I can remember, I don't ever remember not having, this could be the worst winter I've ever seen for us in this area. And what I mean by that is we just haven't got any moisture. I mean, we've gotten a couple of little storms that have, dumped 2 or 3 inches, and in the late Arizona hunt we got a pretty good little storm. But we've had really hot conditions for late. I mean, yesterday it was 66 degrees here in Springerville. And that's just not normal, obviously. We're typically in the highs would be our 40s, in the day, and of course down to the teens at night or 0. And the mountain, Baldy has a little snow on it. The ski area, Sunrise, I believe they're making snow, and other than that, there's, they got a few runs open, but it's not been a very, good. There's just been no moisture. And when we came up from Mexico, I drove through by the Gila, and they had gotten a pretty good little storm, and the Gila over there had some snow on it, but I mean, when you get these warm conditions, it melts it off immediately, especially on the south hillside. So all the north hillsides have, might have an inch or a couple inches on them, but nothing that's going to produce runoff. And, of course, our runoff goes into the, into the Salt River, and it eventually ends up down in Roosevelt, so it's really bad right now. But with that said, feed-wise, I think, we got heavy feed. We're a mountainous unit, 1 in 27 and 3A, 3C. We're all in timber country, and the feed is here. As long as they can find water, we're not like 9 or 10 or some of these units up north that have to produce, that have tank water, and that's the only place a lot of these elk can drink. We have creeks, we have streams, we have springs. We have a little different water situation than a lot of the northern units. So our elk are going to find the water, they're going to find the feed. Typically, I don't really think it's going to affect our horn growth that much. Where I see the horn growth being affected in our units is typically when we have 2 years like this in a row. Then you're going to have a problem. When we had the big droughts 10 years ago, where we were having consecutive dry winters and bad monsoons and all that, we would see that, a lot more. And I'm just a believer that it takes a couple of years to really affect the elk, that they're going to find the feed, they're going to find the water. Now, New Mexico, of course, starts to lean more towards those northern Arizona units, which there are a lot of arid units, as well as they have a couple of mountainous units. But we hunt some arid units in New Mexico, and same thing goes there. And in those arid units, you might see that horn growth affected a little more, but these mountainous units, I don't think get near the elk don't get hurt there as bad as they do in these arid units.
Okay, so is it possible that we could get some late February, early March, late March, get some of those wet, big snowstorms and everything be just fine? Or do you think at best it will be average antler growth, average rutting? I mean, get your crystal ball out and tell me.
Well,
I think I heard you saying there's plenty of feed, but I also am saying, if it didn't get any of this early spring moisture, February, March, early April moisture, what's going to happen?
Well, Jay, do you remember last year we got a lot of spring moisture? Mm-hmm. And Arizona, we never get spring moisture. Hardly ever. We're always, in the spring we're typically really dry. Last year we actually got some really good moisture late. And it's almost like these weather patterns for the Southwest are off by a month or two. Everything's kind of pushed back. And I've noticed in the last few years that our weather patterns, we've had really hot Octobers and November. We've been really cold in late November and got some snow in early December, and then it's warmed back up, and then we've gotten late storms. We got that last year. We got that the year before. So it'll be interesting to see if we get that. Now, we're in an El Nino year where the jet stream's way north, and I know the entire West is dry right now. I mean, it's Utah, southern Colorado, all of New Mexico. Everybody's feeling it right now. I just came from California. I was over there doing a show, and driving through the pass in Reno, coming over into Sacramento. Last year there was literally 50 feet of snow, and there's no snow. There was a couple of feet this year, and of course they had record amount of snow last year. It's with that jet stream being so far north. I mean, we're just dry. Everybody's dry. I mean, I think southern Utah is really, really hurting right now as well,
Yeah.
So, to get my crystal ball out and say, are we going to get it? I don't know. I hope we do. I mean, we always hope for, something in the spring. It's nice to get it. We've talked about how that monsoon moisture that we get in July, it doesn't really help the elk anyway. It's more, it helps the deer, but we don't typically see that affect our elk anyway because it comes so late. And, this year we had a pretty weak monsoon. Our archery season, we're usually, packing rain gear and getting wet quite often. And I mean, it was dry. I mean, once September rolled around, we got no moisture in Arizona over here or in New Mexico. I think we got one storm in the Gila, and in New Mexico we got, a storm here and a little storm there, little storms, and nothing major monsoon. And it was really hot and really windy, which I don't know if I've ever seen an archery season as windy as it was this year. I mean, it was 20, 30-mile-an-hour sustained winds for all day long.
Yeah,
and
I think we talked about that one podcast how it made it,
it
difficult to hear bulls, and it was just a really windy rut.
Right.
Okay, so for what I'm hearing from you is that 1 in 27 are not near as drought related as a bunch of the other units in Arizona. What I'm hearing from you is we've got pretty good feet on the ground. They will find water. Everything should be okay. You're not expecting a huge change in 1 or 27.
No. Weather-wise, I think, we're gonna. I mean, and I could be completely wrong because I have these opinions and everyone else has their own opinions. I mean, I just see it. I've looked at this, time and time again and tried to compare it from other years. And like I said, I just don't think our mountainous units are as affected. I mean, the game and fish is the one you got to worry about in these units over here compared to the, if that's what you need to be more worried about than the antler growth coming on is the age class of the bull that you're hunting. So
we just shot a warning shot over the bow of the AZGFT, didn't we?
Yeah.
Shots fired. Shots fired.
Yeah, I mean it's I hate saying it, but I mean these units in the whole state. I mean, we're right now we're in a big battle with hunter opportunity and quality, and everybody's butting heads over this right now. You see it on social media, you see it all over right now, and you're going to have the opinions of the people who want the trophy class animals, and you're going to see the people who want hunter opportunity. And I mean, obviously the game and fish is leaned towards the hunter opportunity in almost every unit in the state. I can say the elk numbers are down. They can say they're up. I can say they need a mandatory harvest report. They can say they don't. I mean, it can go on and on in that field, and I think there's a lot of approval of how things are being ran, and there's opinions flying right now, and everybody's got an opinion about it. So,
yeah. Well, and rightfully so. I mean, everybody, like yourself, you've lived there and been out there trouncing around for a long time, so you should have an opinion, and you should have, you should feel passionately about the way you do. And, it's hard to see these units when you've seen them as good as they can be, and then you see them where they focus on opportunity a little more over trophy quality, and you see the trophy quality go down. Well, right. Who doesn't want to see a big bull? Who doesn't want to see a big buck? And I think there's a trade-off there. I think you look at other states, you look at over-the-counter units in Colorado, and you've got, trophy quality has just come way, way down in a lot of units, and, there's just not as many people hunting. Well, why aren't they? Well, you could argue that, people don't get excited over a, bull with a 5-inch brow tine and 4 points. Like, they like to see the big rack. So, I mean, there's arguments to go around either way. I would like to see him focus more on trophy quality myself. I'm okay with waiting for the tag. I'm okay with our bonus point system and the way it works, and letting other people get tags and wait your turn. And when you do get a tag, you get a great tag and you get great bugling, and you don't have as much hunter interference. And I do believe there's a happy medium, but it is hard when you have people with different opinions. It's always hard to manage, and it's hard to see the game and fish, lean in one direction for a while and watch that quality, watch that trophy potential and trophy, all those trophy bulls decline. And now you were seeing, 30 or 40 bulls over 350 in a season, and now you're seeing 4. It's
right.
tough to swallow. But with that being said, let's talk about your forecast here for Unit 1. I'm looking, obviously, Go Hunt Insider is a sponsor of this podcast, and they provide the most accurate draw odds out there. And I'm looking at the archery hunts for Unit 1 and Unit 27, and it looks like for non-resident it takes 16 points to guarantee a tag in Unit 1, and it looks like 15 points to guarantee a tag in Unit 27. Compare the archery hunts in both of those units. Just go through the archery hunts in 1 and 27 and talk about them a little bit.
Well, obviously, since the way the bonus point system works with the percentage of of tags going to high point holders, now that they have this 5% random that everybody gets kicked back into, we're going to start seeing a point creep that we've really never seen in Arizona before, where the high point holders always dropped off the top in Arizona, but we're going to start to see a creep in most of the upper, that in the top 5 units in the state. We're going to start seeing a creep. With those numbers that you just gave, that's obviously in the last 2 years, that's basically a 1 to 2 point creep in both of those units.
Yeah, and it seemed like not too long ago it was like 13, 14, Jeff, and now I was kind of shocked today to look at it and it showed 16, 15. I'm like, man.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is, and it's the creep. It's the random tags now that they're giving. So you've got guys drawing these tags from out of state that are getting lucky, and so really who that hurt is the guys with high points. But the way it worked is that the older gentleman or whoever was putting in for these tags, the state was losing the money off that license because, say you're 60 years old, well, you're done. You're not going to put back in for Arizona because you don't want to wait till you're 75 to have a tag. So what they did is by giving that 5%, they're giving people hope. And so now they're getting people to at least put back in and buy that license and try to draw this tag. And I know somebody told me about a sheep guy that drew last year with 2 bonus points and out-of-stater. These tags are going to be tags that are given to random. And if you're just getting in the game, I guess that's a good thing. But if you've been in the game, it doesn't make you too happy,
Yeah.
And so, with getting back to what we were talking about, the was mainly the forecast, correct?
Yep. Well, no, talking about Unit 1 archery and Unit 27 archery, just the archery hunts in general, and maybe the similarities of each unit and the differences, like, how does the Unit 1 archery hunt fare compared to the 27?
Okay, so Unit 1 to 27, obviously Unit 1 is a much milder unit. It's got lots of road access. It's got a lot of open parks, grassland. Obviously, it's been burned pretty heavy, 6 years ago. And the amount of elk in 1 versus 27 in the rut, I think that Unit 1 has a lot more cows. And so you get I think it pulls a lot of bulls to Unit 1 off different places such, I'm sure we're even picking up reservation elk that come to 1 to rut. And I'm sure some of our elk go to the res to rut. I mean, it's just the way these elk move, But 27, you're not going to have as large a groups of cows. Still has, bull to cow ratios are still, solid there. When you're hunting, you don't have any issues not, finding elk. It's just finding the age class of bulls you want to hunt. That's all we've really seen, a drastic drop in is the age class. And especially, the trail cams that we run really have seen a massive drop off in the 7 to 8 year old elk. There's just very, very few the upper age class bulls that we have compared to what we had, say, 5 years ago. And archery hunt wise, I mean, I don't put people in for 27 that aren't in excellent condition. You have to be in very good shape to hunt 27 if you want to utilize the tag. I'm not saying you can't hunt it if you're not in the best of shape. There are areas you can hunt, but you're going to have a lot more pressure in those areas. So where we get in and get deep in that unit, you have to be able to, be able to do, 5 to 10 miles a day, on foot. And, obviously in archery season, everybody thinks that, archery season is a very action-packed, and you're moving and you literally are running bulls down and you're keeping up with them because they're pushing cows, and it's just a whole different type of hunting compared to a late season rifle hunt where the elk are, just more docile and just sitting on the side of a hill feeding and kind of, taking it easy, where in the rut, it's a completely different thing. So it's just a lot more action-packed. So 27, having the rough, steep canyons, you glass a bull up and, he's 1,000 yards away, but it might take 2 hours to get to him because of the terrain, And in Unit 1, you're not going to have that. You got a lot more of the elk coming and going and moving through these open parks and open timber and rolling, pine forests,
Would you say that the biggest bull in in your opinion, is the biggest bull, if you took the biggest bull in Unit 1 and the biggest bull in 27, in your opinion, which unit would win out?
Unit 27.
Okay. If you took is in Unit 27 bulls over 370, is there more in 27 or more in Unit 1?
Oh, that would be, man, it just depends on what time of year you're there.
I mean, good answer.
And the reason I say that is because...
Let's say rut time. Let's say rut time.
Rut time, Unit 1.
Okay.
Late season, 27.
Okay. If you took bulls over, say, 340, so 340 bulls and bigger, is there more in 27 or more in 1?
I'd say that's a pretty even comparison right there with the 340 type bull. A 330 to 340 bull, I think you're going to have more of those bulls in Unit 1, but just because it has a higher, ratio of bulls to cows during the rut, just because it's got higher numbers of cows.
Okay. If you were to pick a better bugling unit, would 1 or 27 be better?
I would say 1. And that solely goes because of the competition of bulls for, hot cows. You're going to have more bulls, which is, I think that has everything to do with how vocal elk are. Where in 27, sometimes we don't see the rut as heavy as we do in 1, and it's because you might have a bull with 5 or 6 cows, and one of them's hot, or, you got a couple of hot cows, and there's just not a lot of other bulls to give him competition where he's at. Where you come to Unit 1, you might have 30 cows, and you have numerous hot cows, and you've got 5 more bulls chousing those cows, and you get those scrums a little more, which makes those bulls, angry, and the rut gets a lot more violent because of the ratio. There's anytime you pile in more bulls on top of hot elk, that's when you're going to get those, those nutso days of the rut. And we don't see it like we used to near as much as we used to, because I think our cow numbers are way down compared to what they used to be. I mean, they're not going to tell you that. Game and Fish doesn't say that. They say the elk numbers are the highest they've ever been right now, which I totally disagree with. So,
let me ask you a question. In Unit 1, 2B, 2C, there's 300 permits. In Unit 27, there's 225. So there's 75 less permits in 27. You have more road access in Unit 1, less road access in Unit 27. From a hunter pressure standpoint, comparing Unit 1 to 27, even though 27 has 75 left, does it feel the same since there aren't as many roads in 27 and it kind of congregates the people?
Yeah, it's exactly what you say. The reason why is because 27, you're going to feel like there's a lot more hunters than that, is because the bulk of the people are going to hunt in 3 areas. And those 3 areas are where all the cows are. And that's why you're going to feel like there's way more people in the unit at the same time. That's why when we hunt 27, we try to go to certain places to get away from that pressure. Now, if there's a big giant bull that we know is in one of those areas and we do decide to hunt him, we have to put up with, lots of people hunting the same groups of elk. And you do see that in one area especially. But yeah, that 225 is still a lot of tags because they congregate, in the northern part of the unit. I mean, the northern part of the unit, where the southern part of the unit in 27, doesn't have near the pressure just because there's a lot less elk. And in Unit 1, with 350, is that what it is? 350 or 300?
No, 300.
Yeah, 300. I get the numbers confused, because everything switches,
Yeah, I think it was 350 at one time. I think they've backed it down to 300.
Yeah, it's back down to 300. It was 150 for most of my life. It was 150 archery
That was
tag.
my next question I was going to ask you is, it was 150 forever. Obviously, the unit burned. I feel like they probably feel like there's more places to hunt. They probably feel like there's more elk, and they've doubled the numbers. But I remember forever, one was 150 tags. Right. And it probably feels horrible compared to what it used to feel to you.
Yeah, it is definitely depressing. I mean, it is not what it once was. I mean, I've killed, I don't even know, I couldn't even count how many bulls we've killed in 1 and 27. And I mean, it's just not the same unit it once was, just solely because of the amount of people that are on the hunts. And what is really dissatisfying to me is that I've been applying hunters for years in these units, and with the promise that this is an excellent tag to get, and the rut's really hardcore, and the archery hunts, you don't have to contend with people. Well, over time, not that it makes me a liar, because it really has nothing to do with me, but now I'm having to change my tone to some of these hunters, and I'm having to say, okay, things have changed a bit. It's not what it once was. The tag numbers have doubled. You are going to run into people from time to time, and the average size of the bull killed is not what it was at one time as well. So, on average, Unit 1 and 27, on average, are the upper end is a 330 to 340 bull hunt. Now, does that mean you don't have bigger bulls? No, there's always going to be some, bulls that make it and get some age class, bulls that cross over from different areas and come into other areas. So you do see those big bulls still. It's not like there's not big bulls there. It's still an excellent hunt. But you're just not going to see, what it was. So I have to explain that to people that have been applying for these hunts for years under the assumption of what it once was.
Right.
Jay, one good way to look at this is, in the late hunt, in 4 days, my outfit, we killed 7 bulls in 4 days. And we killed about a 325, 330 average. Killed a couple of bulls, one bull over, pushing 360, another bull over 350, and then everything else was just, 325, 330 kind of bulls. You look at that 5 years ago, our average was probably pushing over 350. We shot 9 bulls 4 years ago, and our average was probably over 350.
That's just a function of age, isn't it?
Yes. It's just the age class has been, the top of the age class has been knocked off. Now, obviously, you're going to have a good.
Hasn't that mainly come from the late hunts? I mean,
yes,
we talk about
it solely
pressure,
has come from the late.
Yeah, I mean, for a long time, the late hunt pressure's been huge.
The late hunt pressure with everybody having high dollar glass and 1,000-yard rifles has just it's just, and with doubling the tags. That's where I don't get it. It's just the elk have become easier to hunt because, they're sitting ducks in these burns and everybody's shooting 1,000 yards, whether they can or can't. And, it's really knocked. And without having mandatory harvest reports, we don't really know what's legit and what's not. We don't have checkpoints. We don't have any way of really knowing how many elk have been taken. And if you have 460 tags in 27 and you kill 50%, but I'm guessing it's more like 60%, and I mean it's a lot of elk to be taken out of the woods every year.
Let me ask you a question. Have you heard the Game and Fish's response to why there isn't mandatory check-in?
They've so I've asked them why, and they say that their numbers, because they're going to have people that aren't going to send it in, are not going to do the mandatory harvest report anyway, and then they use the excuse also of saying that, well, people might lie on it or whatever. And I just don't agree with it because New Mexico has a mandatory harvest report, and if you don't put in, if you don't turn in your information, when you put in the next year, you get charged for it, and you still have to apply. Even the next year, if you want to put in, you still have to do the harvest report. The problem I see with harvest reports mandatory is even if you had a mandatory harvest report, who is going to police that to actually make sure that's legit? Because really, in the end, they can tell you what you want. We really don't know. We'll never know really exactly what's. It's sad to say I just don't trust the whole system. Because you can't tell me that 15 years ago our elk herd was at 25,000 and now they say it's 65,000. I don't know what the true numbers are, but I know it's something like that.
How hard is it though to set up a station in Springerville or somewhere that's in Alpine or somewhere and say, when you kill an elk, you have to bring it by here. I remember in the Kaibab they used to have a mandatory check station. You had to bring your gear. Well,
Jay, you know what happened on the Kaibab? That went away.
No, I know,
but now But now it's back, isn't it?
I'm not sure.
Well, I heard it came back. But the reason I think is because the Kaibab started it was awful, and the numbers were down, and the hunting was terrible. And I think they took the harvest report out, the check stations out, because they really didn't want you to know really the true numbers.
How bad
and then they
didn't.
Yes, and now that the Kaibab is starting to come back, I heard they put the check station back in. Now I could be wrong, because I know we're going to start hunting the Kaibab again, because we hunted it for years. We're going to start going back because it has come back around. But there was a few years in there that it just was terrible, and we kind of got out of hunting it. But we're going to start hunting it again. And I don't know. Somebody put a post up on Facebook right after the late hunt, a local friend, and everybody got on there and was saying their opinions about, and it got pretty heated. And one of the Game and Fish commissioners got on there, and everybody lit him up pretty hard. I respect the guy; he's a good friend of mine, and obviously I have a different opinion on 80 to 90% of what they say versus, because they use the science side of it and they use the biologist side of it and the funding side of it, where we think it's a revenue-based driven system, which they say it isn't, and that the money's going into many a lot of other things, and it's just a really there's a lot of disagreement right now with the way everything's being handled. And one of the higher ups in the Game and Fish saw me in the post office the other day and said, "Hey, I heard about that that post. Jeff, is maybe we ought to get together sometime and talk about, if there's something we can do. And I'm like, man, it needed to be done 2 years ago. What's done's done. They did it to 3A, 3C. Now they're doing it to these units over here, 1 and 27. And it's pretty sad. I mean, it really is. I mean, you just can't double the numbers in a unit and not expect it to just get, get beat up.
Yeah.
I mean, we had, it's so, the age class, really the trail cams tell us a lot because, 5-6 years ago where you had 20 400-inch bulls on trail cam and now you have one.
Yeah.
And then that 370, 360 to 380 class bull, there's just very few of those compared. And then you got a big wad of 290 to 310s. On the late hunt, when I was saying we killed 7 bulls, I saw 125 bulls in 4 days. Okay, so I saw 100 and I saw 4 bulls over 350. And then after you go off of that, after you go off of that, I mean, a good bull here and a good bull there. And you can see what the outfitters are killing.
Don't you think on the late hunts, not only are they killing more bulls, and I'd have to look at the harvest numbers to tell you exactly, and I'm just speaking in
but
general,
how are you going to compare those harvest numbers? That's all a guess.
I know, but also with that being said, they're also killing better bulls because they can now see them in those burns. So with the high-powered optics and with the ability to shoot a long ways, they're hammering the better bulls because before, when there was lots of timber and you couldn't glass like you can now, when you saw a bull, a lot of times people just shot a bull. Now they're, like you said, you looked at 125 bulls in 4 days. You guys obviously shot the better bulls you saw. So in other words, from a hunting standpoint, it's easier to sit there and go, okay, that bull, that bull, that bull, that bull. Okay, I'm going to shoot this one. So you're selectively harvesting the better racked bull, I would assume. And
yes,
over time, when your late hunt, not only, even if your late hunt harvest numbers stayed exactly the same, but your age class of bull harvest was higher, ultimately, in a couple years, you're going to see your late hunt bulls or your older age class bulls are gone because people have been able to sit and glass long range in open burns and pick out the biggest racked bull and kill it. A lot of times the biggest racked bull is the most mature, and so you're whacking the most mature bulls.
Oh, definitely. So that's spot on. But what with what you're saying, that is correct. That's why that average that we have been killing for the last 5 years, every year has dropped size-wise because we are killing the biggest bulls we can find.
Right. So out of the 125 you saw, the 7 that you killed are the better ones that you found. Maybe not the best, but they're the better ones. You try and kill the best ones. But maybe before, when you couldn't see as well and there was a 300-inch bull, you probably had your late hunter shoot it because you couldn't see 15 other bulls at the same time and go, well, there's one, let's pick the best one out of 15 that we see this morning. Okay, let's shoot that one. So over time, it doesn't take very long when you have good hunters like you guys and some of the, the other outfitters and such up there, like you guys have whacked the older age class bulls. The better racked bulls, the older age class bulls are gone. Not gone, but there's a lot less of them.
Yeah, there's a lot less of them.
And that's strictly from a timber standpoint. Like, you can see them, right? That's what makes you so successful on those late hunts is you guys can cherry pick through them.
Yeah, we are cherry picking. And, I put a post on my Instagram and I said, here's a bull we just passed up. And everybody's like, well, that bull's going to die. If anyone else sees it, they're going to kill it. I mean, it was a really nice bull, but it just wasn't what we were looking for. And I try to push my hunters to shooting the upper age class. That's what, I pride myself in trying to push people to shoot the better bulls that we have. I do it in New Mexico. I do it in Arizona. It's
Now,
not about just
the
shooting
better
elk with
bulls
me.
or the more mature bulls? The better racked bulls or the
Well,
or
typically,
just a
obviously,
body?
we're looking for big antlers. We're looking
Right,
for
right.
and most of the time with big antlers means older bulls.
Right.
I mean, it's not that you don't see an older bull that has bad genetics that's heavy and an old bull, and we don't kill him because there's a big pretty bull standing right next to him that outscores him by 20 inches.
Right.
You see
And
that
not
as well.
many people will tell you that there's a gnarly 5 points, it's all bladed, and he's old, and there's a pretty six standing right next to him. Most people will shoot the pretty six.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's right.
I got a question for you now. This year, September 28th through October 4th. They flip flop it every year. This year, 27 is early rifle, and Unit 1 is muzzleloader. From a date standpoint, September 28th through October 4th, from a quality of hunt standpoint, bugling, whole thing, how do those dates stack up?
Those are the best dates you'll ever get for a trophy hunt.
Okay, from a bugling, just chaos.
My opinion, the last week of September to the 5th of October is the best rut action you'll get.
Okay.
My opinion's always that late September, on average, that's when you see that really hardcore rut action. Is this that last week of September can be really, really good.
Okay,
now,
and then go ahead.
Obviously this year the archery dates are the good archery dates. It starts on the 14th. That's the later date. When it starts on the 9th, I hate that date because it's just always, for 5 or 6 days, it's just slow, and then it starts to pick up. And then you don't really get into it till the 20th, but when you start on the 14th, the bulls are starting to rut pretty good, and then it starts getting better as that hunt goes on. And the last week of the archery hunt's really good, and then the week it's over, that goes into the trophy hunt. So with the archery hunt starting on the 14th this year, and that trophy hunt following, the last week of archery season and that trophy hunt are going to be rocking. So,
especially, don't you think, since it's a full moon on the 25th of September, they're just going to be going nuts. So,
yeah, we're going to have, the moon's going to be way different next year, this season, than it was this year. This year the moon was awful,
Yeah.
So,
okay, with those dates, though, don't you think, and with the full moon and with just probably them going nuts during those dates, broken points are going to be a problem this year?
No, I mean, I have a whole different opinion on broken points too. So
okay, let's hear it.
Broken point bulls. So we had a lot of broken bulls this year. Lots of broken bulls. And last year we had very little broken bulls. We had a extremely wet summer last year, coming in to the bulls shedding their velvet and getting into the season. This year in New Mexico and stuff, we had a real spotty monsoon. So I think that density of antlers has a lot to do with summer moisture and summer feed. And I'm not saying bulls being big and long, I'm saying density. The density of the mass of the antler on the inside of the antler when they're growing.
So, in other words, how heavy and how strong it is.
Yes. On dry years, you see weak bulls. On wet years, you see strong antler bulls where you don't see as many broken points. This year, this summer we had a real kind of a pathetic monsoon with just real spotty rains. We were going 6-7 days without any rain, where typically we get rain every day. Well, this year you couldn't imagine, and then this was both states. I mean, New Mexico was a broken mess, and so was Arizona. By the late hunts, it was awful. I mean, you literally could not find a bull that wasn't broken. I mean, it was lots of broken points. And last year you didn't really see that at all. And I'm sure that the rut has something to do with that as well, as how crazy did the rut get. In the first in archery season, we didn't see any broken points in archery in New Mexico. And then by that first October hunt that we hunt, that starts over there, we saw piles of broken bulls by that hunt. So they rutted extremely hard after archery season in New Mexico. And that's where we saw lots of broken bulls. So, I don't know. I mean, as a joke, I've always said that the rainwater on the velvet makes the antlers hard. I know that sounds stupid, but it's always a joke. I always say, I think when the rainwater on these velvet bulls makes those antlers super, super dense.
Well, I think there's something to it for sure. When you look at 27 as the early rifle and Unit 1 as a muzzleloader, just stepping back, if I said you could have one or the other to kill the biggest bull, which would you take this year?
I would take 27 for me personally, but I wouldn't with a hunter.
So you would take it for yourself personally, because you would be willing to go through the punishment, but for a hunter, you would take the Unit 1 muzzy hunt over the 27 early rifle for a client.
Yes.
Okay.
Because everybody thinks everybody says they can keep up or they can do the rough, but until you actually put them in it and make them do it, I think back to my 27 archery hunt, year before last when we had our 2 tags, both you and I. My 27 hunt punished me so bad that I literally had to give up on the bull that I was hunting. I could not hunt him anymore because my legs wouldn't take it. I couldn't go in after him. I was done. I hunted him for 8 days, and I threw in the towel. I could not hunt him anymore because my legs would not make the climb to get into where he was. And when I went into the other area, it was a much easier area to hunt and killed the other bull that I still killed. That area was just a lot more road accessible, and I could get in there and hunt, and I didn't have to hike as much. But I was so physically spent coming from Utah and then doing the 27 hunt of where the bull was that I was trying to kill that I finally pretty much had to give up on him because I just couldn't keep up with him because he was traveling so far from his bedding ground to his feeding ground, and I just couldn't keep up with him anymore.
Good stuff. That's good stuff.
And everybody, and so with clients, of course I ask a lot of times, what kind of shape are you in? And when I ask people that, I really mean that. I need to know what kind of physical shape you're in, because it's very important when we're putting people in for the draws that we understand what you can do. Now, talking about this is interesting. Me being a hunter and not just a guide, an outfitter, where I love to hunt myself, I didn't put Unit 1 or 27 as my first archery choice this year. I picked another unit solely because I feel like I can go to that unit and find a bigger bull that I'm looking for easier and kill it. And the 1 in 27 was my second and third choice. But I just put in another unit this year solely because I feel like I can find an older age class bull in that unit. Now, if I drew a 1 or 27 myself or with clients, it's still a great hunt, and I still want to put, hunters in and hunt the units because I know we can still kill 340 to 350 bulls on the upper end. And, so I tell my hunters one thing, but I might do something different, or I might have a specific hunter that has hunted with me before that I know can do certain things and doesn't have limitations. But you have to understand what everybody's limitations are because of that. Because when you really get after it and you really hunt 14 days as hard as you can go, you know how physically draining it can be, Jay.
Don't you also think there's an aspect of that, and you've seen it probably where you have a physical specimen of a person, but a mental midget, and you might almost take a happy medium where the guy's in just pretty good shape, but he's tougher than anything, and he has a great attitude that can overcome some of the physicality that, having a super mentally tough and knowing that it's going to be a grind. I mean, people listening to the podcast need to understand that if you're on you got a 14-day archery season and you're going to hunt in Arizona, if you think it's going to be easy, you are sorely mistaken. Now, granted, is it going to be like Idaho or backcountry in Wyoming or, even Colorado for that matter from a physical standpoint? Probably not, even though Jeff would tell you there's places in 27 that are every bit as tough. But it's also mentally draining when you know that you've got this great tag and that you're passing bulls in order to try and shoot a certain bull that you wanted, bull of a lifetime. Like, I would rather have someone that's just super, like, not, a mental midget. I would rather have someone that's, like, totally mentally tough and, like, you get a freaking rainstorm that, washes everything out, blows your evening, instead of throwing a tantrum. They're like, man, wasn't that lightning cool? And let's move on tomorrow and keep charging. There's so much of the mental aspect, I think, that's every bit as important as the physical aspect. With that being said, you can't take someone that's, a flatlander that's a lump that, just can't do it. But, I mean, I'd almost rather have someone that's in pretty good shape but is really mentally tough and has a great attitude over the guy that's just a physical specimen but, cries at the first sign of adversity.
Well, obviously you've guided a lot. That's all I'm going to say when I say that, because you are 100% correct. With that said, you obviously have guided a lot, because the mental toughness will overshadow the physical specimen of a man any day of the week. Because I've made that physical specimen of a man cry, and I've had 65, 70-year-old men that could step for step with me just because they were just physically, mentally tough dudes. And and had a good attitude. And the good attitude of hunters when they come overshadows anything else. I every day that I think about different people that I have guided over the years, that mental attitude of people, and it just makes them good people for one thing, but they're just always, because as well as I do, you're going to have your down days and you're going to have your up days. There's going to be, that's why if you're trophy hunting, people call and they say, Jeff, I want to book a 5-day hunt. I say, okay, you're going to shoot the first 325 or 330 bull we put in front of you. Now, if you want to kill 350 and above, you need to hunt 10 to 14 days.
Right.
If you can afford it, you need to hunt 10 to 14 days. Trophy hunting takes time.
Right.
Lots of stars have to align, and lots of things have to happen to kill that upper age class bull. And being able to, and sometimes you get a guy that's got both. He's got the physical attributes, and he's also got the mental attributes. And when you get that, you can just about, pick and choose what you're going to do on a hunt because of that. And you do get that from time to time. I just posted on Instagram yesterday a picture of Nick Albonico. He's a guy from California that hunts with us, and he's killed some really good bulls. Killed a giant bull in Nevada, killed a big bull in Montana last year, killed 2 really good bulls with us. Physically, he's in excellent shape, and he's just a super, guy that when it comes to his mental, the mental side, he's just, hey man, we didn't get him today, we'll get him tomorrow. We'll be on him, and even when I've been down or this crap, I wish this wouldn't have happened or whatever, he's like, hey man, that's hunting, And when you get people like that understand the gig, it just makes, first off, it makes guiding a lot more enjoyable, and it just makes their hunt better because, look at you in Utah when you hunted and think of the ups and downs you got hunting that big bull.
Yeah.
And the people you're associated with and the people that you were around, they don't have, we can't make things happen just because.
Right.
Things have to be correct and things have to go right for things to happen the way they need to happen. And, it's beyond our control.
Sometimes the sun shines on you bright, and sometimes it doesn't shine on you at all, and you just kind of have to take it for what it is and keep plugging away, because, you can't make it happen. You just got to do the best you can, and sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't.
Right. When I was in 27 on that hunt, my archery hunt, the last time I saw the big bull that I was hunting, I chased him. He didn't know I was on him, but he was pushing some cows up this same ridge he'd been going up for multiple days. And the last time I saw him, I was trying to get up in front of him, and finally I was spent. I was done. I was pouring sweat. I was dehydrated. I was fully done. I fell over on the side of the hill. I threw a spot and scope up, and he walked through a little opening, and I caught a glimpse of him with my phone scope, and that was the last I saw him. And I just rolled over and looked in the sky and said, well, I got beat because I'm done. There's no way I can go up there now. And I packed up, and I remember how long it took me to get out of there that night compared to normal. I could walk out in an hour and a half, and it literally took me 3 hours because I was just so physically spent. And mentally draining. It made me mad because that was the bull that I was wanting. But you have to, at the end of the day, there's only so much you can do, and I just said, hey, it's not that I threw the towel and I didn't give up on the hunt. I knew other areas I could go hunt and still be successful, but it's hard, it can be very physically demanding trophy hunting and trying to kill, that upper age class animal. And it's like that in any hunt. It's not just elk hunting, it's any hunting. I know when we went to the Yukon and we were hunting, and I took a really good client with me to go, and he hunted Dall sheep and I was hunting mountain caribou. We had the same thing there. We had to pack our pack for 10 days. We were backpacking, and it got pretty demanding at times and really physical, and it makes for an enjoyable, part of the hunt. Especially afterwards, you can look back on that, and it gives you some sense of accomplishment. And that type of hunting isn't for everybody. And, obviously that's why there's a lot of hunts that are, people are into that kind of stuff, and some people aren't. And that's why it's important that you discuss with every client on his abilities and his, I always ask people, what is your, we've talked about it before, Jay, realistic expectations of what you're expecting. I try to get everybody to tell me that, because if you as an outfitter do not pair that hunter up with his expectations, he's going to be, you're going to fall short of what he came to do.
Right.
And it's important that you understand each hunter's abilities, because you don't want to put him in an area that he can't come and fulfill his dream, because it's going to end bad for you and it's going to end bad for him.
Yeah, there's no upside for you as an outfitter to take someone that has expectations that are too high, for sure.
Yeah, I learned that early. I did that a few times.
Yeah, it only takes once or twice, and you learn that pretty quick. I want to take just a second here and thank the listeners for listening to this podcast, but I want to thank the sponsors of this podcast. I've talked about Go Hunt Insider, talked about the draw odds for Unit 1 and 27, and want to remind the listeners, if you're not a Go Hunt Insider member, you can go to gohunt.com/JScott. By signing up, you automatically get a $50 Go Hunt Gear Shop gift card, and then you also have access to all of the draw odds for the Western states, and you can look in each one of these units and see the guaranteed number of points it takes to draw, etc., harvest statistics, and what have you. Go check out gohunt.com, become an insider member. I want to thank them for their sponsorship. Also, Kuiu Ultralight Hunting. If you're at the SCI show here, or if you're going to be at the Western Hunting Expo, go to the Kuiu booth, look up Jason Harrison, the founder and the CEO of Kuiu Ultralight Hunting. Tell him you're a podcast listener. If you have any questions about the Kuiu gear, get him and his staff to show you the gear. Also, phonescope.com. Cheston Davis, use the JScott16 promo code. You're going to get a 10% discount on all PhoneScope adapters. And the Outdoorsman, the Optics Authority, they are at SCI right now. Use the JScott promo code. You're going to get a 10% discount. They are the Optics Authority. They're located in Arizona, formerly of Phoenix, now of Fountain Hills, but you can go to outdoorsmans.com as well and use that JScott promo code. I want to thank those 4 sponsors for sponsoring this podcast and making it possible. Jeff, I want to finish on the late rifle hunt. First and foremost, these late rifle hunts, like we talked about, I'm sure is bittersweet for you because you know that it's wiping out, in essence, it's killing your older age class bulls. And as long as the Game and Fish continues to offer tags, being an outfitter in that unit, obviously you've got to take your hunters and do the best you can. It looks like Unit 1 takes 11 points and Unit 27 takes 10 points. From a quality of hunt standpoint, would you say you would rather have the 1 hunt or the 27 late hunt?
Okay, so that goes to me personally. For size, I would want to hunt 27.
Okay.
We killed last year. We killed our better bulls in 27. I mean, it was pretty much a wash across the board. I mean, the bulls that we killed in 1 and the bulls that we killed in 27 were pretty much the same kind of bull. But if you come, I mean, I would say, knowing from what the outfitters killed and personal people, and the bigger bulls came out of 27 last year in the late hunt, not Unit 1. Now,
let me ask you a question to that real fast. Do bulls migrate out of 1 into 27, and do bulls migrate from is 27 kind of a melting pot of bulls come to 27 in those later months?
Since the burn, I think a lot of that has changed, and yes, I think a lot of bulls go back into 27 after the rut. And I also see Unit 27 picking up bulls from other areas, such as maybe the reservation, or maybe crossing over out of New Mexico and coming back into 27. I'm not saying that it's because you're obviously getting bulls that leave 27 and do the same thing. I know of a specific bull that the only place this bull could live, he's got to live on the reservation. In most of, and he summers in areas, I mean, in 27, and he the rest of the year he lives on the reservation. During the hunting season, he's on the reservation. He cannot be in 27, or this bull would be dead for sure, 100%. And Unit 1, I see a lot of crossover as well. I've seen a couple of bulls killed in 27 and deep in 27 that rutted in Unit 1. And of course they're big bulls because they're bulls we know about.
Right.
And then there was a 400-inch bull, I think he's like 401 or something, that was shot in 27 on the late hunt this year. Me or neither of the friends that run trail cams together or share information, none of us knew about that bull, and no one had him on trail cam early. Nobody had him late. The bull literally showed up the week before the late hunt, and I know somebody that had found him before the hunt, and they didn't kill him. Some hunters, I think they were from Phoenix or something. They killed the bull, and I think the bull's 401, 404, something like that, and that bull that's not a bull that anyone knew about.
Probably a res bull, huh?
Yeah, that's all I can think, and I know where he was killed, and it makes sense that bull would have come across and come into that area. I mean, it was pretty deep still in 27, so it kind of makes me wonder, I think there's a lot about these bulls that people don't realize how much they do travel. And trail cams have really shown us that these elk really do move, and move a lot in some areas.
Yeah.
And what's funny, in New Mexico, I have areas where bulls don't move at all. And then a unit literally across the road, I have bulls that that go 15 to 20 miles between rut and where they are. So it's really interesting to hear the stories of where bulls are killed or where they summer or where they, there's a lot of movement that I think happens that a lot of people don't realize,
That's all good stuff. That's just all good stuff. Well,
with another thing with the Unit 1, like you said, that Unit 1 late hunt, I always put our older gentlemen, anybody that we have in the hunt that is mobility impaired a little bit, not that they're handicapped or anything, I'm just saying they can't go, quite as hard as someone else. I definitely try to draw them a tag in Unit 1 over 27 because we can get them into an area in a truck, obviously, and make a quarter-mile walk to our glassing areas versus 27 where we need to make a couple-mile walk to get to our glassing areas.
Yeah. Yeah, and don't you think that's probably the reason why 27 takes less points. It only takes 10 points as opposed to Unit 1 takes 11, just from a access and, physicality standpoint.
Yeah, I do. That's exactly why. And then, when we talk about the larger bull being killed in 27 being rough and rugged, there's always going to be those nooks and crannies that bulls are able to hide. And not that Unit 1 doesn't have those nooks and crannies, but, every hunt in the state is different. I mean, you look at 3A, 3C. Let's use it as a comparison. Obviously, it's got a great trophy hunt. It's got a great archery hunt. But when you come to the late hunt, a lot of those elk are leaving and going back into the canyon country on the res to winter.
Yeah.
And the late hunt can be a terrible hunt in 3A, 3C.
Yeah.
And
it's just not the elk are gone pretty much. The bulls are gone.
Yeah. So if we understand that because we're residents and we've hunted these units and we get that. But, I had a guy last year that called and said, hey, I drew 3A, 3C, and he's in the middle of his hunt, and he was just totally getting his butt kicked and said, I haven't seen any bulls. And I said, well, how many points did you have? And he said, I had, 15 points, and I drew this tag. And I'm like, I didn't want to tell him and be mean, but I was like, that's not a hunt you should have put in for with 15 points.
Yeah, for sure.
And, he was just really having a hard time, and I ended up leading him in an area that he did shoot a bull, and it was a 280 bull, but he said, I did kill a bull where you told me to go, and it's just a tough hunt, so that's why in both states, Arizona and New Mexico, there's certain hunts we do at certain times of the year where you won't even find us in that unit at other times because we just don't hunt hunts in areas where we can't produce that kind of bull.
Makes sense.
So,
all right, I want to conclude on how's HuntHard gear going for you?
Well, it's going good. We got a lot of stuff we're trying to expand, and obviously it's a very competitive industry. There's some pretty big giants in this industry that are cranking right now. Obviously, we know the success of Kuiu and Sitka, and there's a lot of other there's lots of clothing manufacturers coming on. So for what we are doing and what our brand is presented and what it's doing well. Obviously, we would like it to do a little better at times. Obviously there's, like I said, a lot of competition, but for what we do with our brand, with the HuntHard brand, also the clothing and apparel, which is more novelty and it's doing very good. So
good. Where can people find you?
They can find us on HuntHard.com. That's our, that of course will be, our gear website, where our clothing, apparel, packs, and equipment. And then there's an outfitter section on the website that you can find, the outfitting side of what we do. And then Facebook, with HuntHard as well. And then Instagram is HuntHard_gear.
Okay.
And that's our Instagram side. And then anytime, you can if anybody has questions or needs brochures or anything, they can call me direct or text me on my cell phone, which all the information is on the web, or to get a hold of me to get any information you need about hunts, or call me direct to talk, about strategies for hunts for both, Arizona or New Mexico.
Sounds great. And when we start talking about New Mexico, I'll have to have you on again. Are you going to be at the Western Hunt Expo, or are you going to be at any shows coming up? If people are listening?
No, I've been to Sacramento and Washington. I did a show, and I'll be in Portland this next weekend at a show there in Portland, and it's the same time as the Western Hunt Expo.
Okay.
And I've kind of I used to do the Western Hunt Expo. I've kind of got out of the Western Hunt Expo for a couple of reasons, and it's not that it's a good show. It's just become a different show compared to booking hunts. The gear side, I would like to take it back to the Western Hunt Expo, but the outfitting side at the Western Hunt Expo is, it's just a different crowd. It's become a different show for booking hunts. But the gear side, I would definitely like to take back to that show.
Sounds good, man. Well, thanks for all your insight, and appreciate your candid approach and being honest with us and giving us your opinion. That's always of great value. And congrats on your Mexico bucks. And thanks for spending time here with us.
Good deal. Thanks for having me, Jay.
All right, buddy. Sounds good. God bless. I'll catch you later.
Okay. Talk to you later. Thanks.
Bye.